They called me the greatest genius our sect had seen in generations. So when I turned down an immortal swordmaster and chose a master who hadn't even formed a golden core, everyone thought I'd lost my mind. But I'd seen the future, and in that future, the woman everyone worshipped drove a sword through my heart just to steal my inner core for the man she loved. I was the disciple most likely to reach the peak of the Tao in Changheng sect. At the Immortal Master Assembly, I had been given a glimpse of my future through the heavenly fate mirror, and what I saw nearly made my blood run cold. Liu Ruyan, the woman standing before me now, would one day stab me straight through the chest. Then she would rip out my inner core and toss my body aside, all so she could help her beloved cultivate an immortal artifact. That was why, despite being the sect's most promising disciple, I chose a master everyone considered worthless. The moment I bowed before Li Xia, the entire hall went silent. Liu Ruyan was a sword cultivation genius who appeared only once in a century. She accepted a disciple only once every 50 years. Meanwhile, Li Xia hadn't even reached the Golden Core realm. She had only managed to become a nominal elder of Foundation Establishment Peak because of the achievements her mother had earned at the cost of her life. According to the rules of the Immortal Master Assembly, Li Xia raised her hand and tossed something toward me. I caught it without thinking. It was the wine gourd she had just been drinking from. "My disciple gift," she said. The instant I accepted it, a golden master and disciple seal formed between us. For a moment, nobody spoke. Then Liu Ruyan slowly lowered her hand. Her voice drifted down from above, cold enough to freeze the air. "Foolish." And just like that, I became famous across the entire sect. Everywhere I went, people pointed at me and whispered, "That's the one who rejected immortal Liu Ruyan and chose that useless elder instead." Sure, he lasted half a lesson in the heavenly fate mirror, so he's talented, but without Liu Ruyan guiding him, how far can he really go? What a waste. Immortal Liu Ruyan only takes a disciple once every 50 years. Now everyone else has to wait another 50 years. I ignored every word. There was no point arguing with them. My master was incredibly lazy. Foundation Establishment Peak had only one disciple, me, and the moment Li Xia brought me back, she tossed me the key to the library and told me to cultivate on my own. Then she disappeared somewhere to sleep. Foundation Establishment Peak sat far away from Changheng sect's main peak, where spiritual energy was scarce. It was barely suitable for cultivation. Only on the 1st and 15th days of every month could I go to the main peak to receive teachings and absorb a little extra spiritual energy. The rest of the time, I stayed buried in the library, reading every book I could get my hands on. Naturally, the entire sect assumed I had given up. Some people mocked me. Some pitied me. Others started placing bets on how long it would take before I crawled back to Liu Ruyan and begged her to take me as her disciple. But they never got to see me cry. Instead, they received news that Liu Ruyan had taken another disciple. On the day she accepted him, golden light filled the sky above the main peak. Everyone gathered around him, eager to ask questions. "Can you answer a few things for us?" "I'll answer later, okay?" a cheerful voice replied. "Master told me to pick up some things, so I need to get back soon." The crowd instantly burst into admiration. Then they automatically parted, making way for a young man in a pale yellow robe. His long hair was tied in a high ponytail, and he practically skipped up the stairs before stopping directly in front of me. He tilted his head and gave me a bright, carefree smile. "So you're the genius who refused to become Master's disciple half a year ago?" he asked. "I thought you'd be something special. But after half a year, you're still stuck on Foundation Establishment Peak?" I stared at him, confused by the hostility in his voice. Before I could respond, someone behind him called out, "Nanman, don't waste your time on him. He's nothing but trash. So what if he ranked first at the Immortal Master Assembly?" The moment he entered Foundation Establishment Peak, his path of cultivation was basically over. "But you're different. I heard Immortal Liu Ruyan cares about you a lot." My heart sank slightly as I silently repeated his name, Nanman. I had heard about him. Not long ago, Liu Ruyan had left the sect and casually enlightened an iris plant. After it took human form, the young man became lively and charming. He clung to Liu Ruyan and insisted on becoming her husband. Liu Ruyan rejected him several times. Nanman pretended to accept it, but then secretly followed her all the way back to Changheng sect. He was bullied by outer disciples, cried pitifully, and Liu Ruyan personally stepped in to save him. From everything I knew, Liu Ruyan treated her disciples well, and based on what I had seen in the heavenly fate mirror, I should have been completely devoted to her in the future. Yet she had still torn out my inner core for Nanman. Liu Ruyan was no fool. There was no way she hadn't noticed Nanman following her. She had allowed it to happen. Maybe she had even encouraged it. Nanman clearly loved the rumors surrounding them. He narrowed his eyes and smiled before pulling a glass-like 7-string zither from his storage ring. His pale fingers gently brushed over the strings as he said, "These 7 strings were each made from the heart hair of ancient, fierce beasts." He paused, his gaze sliding toward my completely empty waist. "As for the body of the zither," he smiled smugly, "I heard Master once planned to give you a jade pendant made from mystic iron. That material is rare, right? But this zither of mine is made entirely from mystic iron." Oh, so that was what this was. He had come here to show off. I looked at him, then glanced around at the crowd gathered in the square. Every single one of them looked excited, clearly hoping to see us start a fight. After a brief silence, I put on my most serious expression and asked, "Then could you explain exactly where this mystic iron came from? And which fierce beasts did the 7 strings come from? Also, where did your master find something this valuable?" I had a reason for asking. Nanman carried an absurd number of treasures, and the spiritual energy around him was so dense it almost felt solid. I had been stuck at the middle stage of the Foundation establishment realm for a long time, but after standing near him for only a few moments, I could already feel my cultivation loosening. I just wanted to keep him talking so I could stay near him longer. Maybe I would even break through. That was it. My intentions were completely pure, but after hearing my questions, Nanman froze. Then, somehow, his eyes started turning red. He stomped his foot and shouted, "You think you know so much? What right do you have to humiliate me?" I was completely stunned. Nanman became so consumed by the imaginary insult that he didn't even collect his supplies. He turned around and ran away while shouting over his shoulder, "Just wait! At the next sect examination, I'll make you my defeated opponent." I stood there in a daze. I knew he was Liu Ruyan's future favorite. I had absolutely no desire to get revenge on him. The difference in power between us was way too great. All I wanted was to stay as far away from him as possible. So how had I offended him without even trying? Feeling miserable, I returned to Foundation Establishment Peak. The moment I arrived, a shadow dropped in front of me, and the supplies I had just received were snatched away. Li Xia rummaged through everything, then counted all the snacks twice. Her face darkened. "The old women at the main peak are getting stingier every day. Master, leave some for me." She ignored me and kept digging through the pile. Then she suddenly pulled something out and frowned. "What's this?" The second she spoke, a butterfly flew out of the item in her hand. It transformed in mid-air into a line of glowing words. "Sect Examination Notice. Participant, Beimu." No wonder Nanman had been so confident. He had received the notice early and was obviously planning to humiliate me at the examination. This was bad. Li Xia didn't care in the slightest. She grabbed the snacks and started walking away. I immediately hugged her leg and begged her to help me. I didn't expect to win, but I really didn't want to die horribly. Li Xia sighed. "You've seen the condition of our peak. Your master wants to help, but I'm powerless too." I almost burst into tears. "Master, you're still an elder. Can't you at least give me a magic artifact? Those people from the main peak are coming after me. I'm scared I won't live to see tomorrow's sun." "Then surrender. But if I rank well, I get snacks as a reward." Li Xia stopped walking. I was poor. The snacks sent from the main peak usually never made it into my hands, and in 3 months, we would enter a minor, secret realm. I wanted to save enough spirit stones to buy some protective talismans. Li Xia's eyes lit up instantly. "How many snacks?" I raised 5 fingers, thought about it, then lowered 2. "If I reach the top 100, I get 300 high-grade snacks, and every opponent I defeat after that earns another 100. 300 is still pretty good." Li Xia thought about it for a while. Then she pulled a key from her storage bag and tossed it to me. "This is the key to our Peak's artifact pavilion. Go pick whatever you want." Her words sounded so generous that my heart nearly exploded with excitement. As I walked toward the artifact pavilion, I imagined all kinds of rare treasures waiting for me inside. But the moment I opened the door, a suffocating smell of mold hit me in the face. I knew Foundation Establishment Peak was poor. I just didn't know it was this poor. The so-called artifact pavilion was nothing more than a tiny wooden shack covered in spiderwebs, and the so-called magic artifact was one black, rusted iron sword. The hilt alone was as thick as both my arms put together. It was ridiculously heavy. At my level, every sword cultivator already had their own weapon. Either it was incredibly powerful, or it looked unbelievably impressive. My sword was neither. If I brought it outside, people would probably laugh until their teeth fell out. Still, having something was better than having nothing. From that day forward, I officially began training with the sword. I pieced together a cultivation technique from the books in the library. My sword style was even worse. I copied one move from one book and another move from somewhere else. I couldn't even lift the sword properly at first. The thing weighed around 200 kilograms. So every day, the main thing I did was swing it from my right side to my left side, then swing it back again. Time passed quickly. Before I knew it, the sect examination arrived 1 month later. My first opponent was Beiji, my old enemy from the same immortal cultivation family. The difference was that he came from the direct bloodline, while I came from a side branch. Beiji had never shown much talent during the cultivation ceremony, but his father was rich, so the moment he stepped onto the stage, he pulled out a pile of magic artifacts, protective talismans, formation-breaking compasses, and, of course, a beautiful sword that cost more than I could probably earn in my entire life. The audience immediately began whispering, "Beiji is ruthless. Beimu is still part of his family. Does he really need to go this far? You don't know. Beiji has been getting close to Nanman lately." Oh, now it makes sense. Look at Beimu though. He's so calm. Maybe he has a plan. With everyone watching, I slowly pulled my great sword from my storage bag, and just like I expected, people started laughing. Beiji laughed the hardest. He bent over so far he could barely stand upright. "Beimu, are you so scared that your sword is shaking?" I frowned and looked down. The sword really was shaking, but my hand wasn't trembling. The sword itself was humming. Before I could think about it any further, Beiji attacked. I took 2 steps back. In a panic, I swung my sword on instinct, exactly like I did every day in training, from right to left. But before the blade even touched the ground, Beiji was sent flying like a kite with its string cut. He crashed into the marble platform and coughed up blood. The entire arena fell silent. Then someone shouted, "Beimu! Did any of you see that move?" "What move?" He only swung once, and Beiji got blasted away. That's terrifying, and he did it with a rusted iron sword. I can't imagine how strong he'd be with a real magic artifact. As expected of the #1 genius from the Immortal Master Assembly, talent really does matter. The crowd murmured as all their attention shifted toward me. None of them noticed that my rusty sword was greedily absorbing the spiritual energy inside Beiji's magic artifacts. Later, when Beiji limped back onto the stage to collect his things, he discovered that every artifact he had spent a fortune on had completely failed. Just like that, I defeated opponent after opponent and fought my way into the top 50. Maybe it was my imagination, but the rust on my great sword seemed thinner. Strange runes had begun to appear beneath it. Unfortunately, I didn't have time to study them. I was too busy counting spirit stones until my hands went numb. As a poor disciple from Foundation Establishment Peak, I had never felt this rich in my life. Then a shadow fell over me. Nanman descended in front of me, surrounded by disciples like the center of the world. He wore a moon-white robe, and his 7-string zither moved slightly in his hands, as if it were nodding along with him. "I challenge him," Nanman said. According to the rules, a higher-ranked disciple could challenge a lower-ranked one. Nanman was in the top 20, so he had every right to challenge me, and I couldn't refuse. He smiled at me again. "I thought you weren't even qualified to be my opponent, but it seems you're stronger than I expected." The moment he came close, that familiar feeling returned. It felt like I was standing inside a sea of pure spiritual energy. I narrowed my eyes in comfort and happily accepted his challenge. The reason was simple. Spirit cultivation was harder than ordinary cultivation, and I had ranked first at the Immortal Master Assembly. Sure, my circumstances weren't great, but after winning so many fights in a row, my confidence had grown massively. Even if I couldn't defeat Nanman, I could still stall for time and absorb some of the spiritual energy around him, and maybe I could beat him. That was what I thought. But after only 2 moves, Nanman sent me flying. His soft-soled boot slammed down on my face. The cheerful innocence on his face was gone. In its place was a twisted, obsessive expression. "Master said I was born without a spiritual root," he said. "Even if I can cultivate, I'll never form an immortal bone in the future." He didn't say it directly, but I know he's disappointed in me. His fingers tightened around the zither. "That's the regret between Master and me. But you threw away something like that. You had that talent, and you still chose a worthless Master. How is he better than Master?" Nanman's eyes darkened. "But it's fine. If I destroy your spiritual root, then we'll be the same." His smile became cruel. "No, you'll be worse than me. Master won't regret missing out on you anymore. From now on, he'll only care about me." As he spoke, Nanman plucked the strings of his 7-string zither. A sharp sound tore through the air. Pain exploded through my entire body, as if every bone and tendon had shattered at once. I cried out and coughed up a mouthful of blood. The elders watching the match noticed what was happening, but they only frowned. The sect examination had no rule against killing. They had no intention of stopping him. This couldn't continue. My mind raced through every cultivation technique I had read about in the library. I tried them all, whether they were useful or not. Then, at some point, the great sword in my hand suddenly let out a violent hum. I raised my arm instinctively. A terrifying wave of sword energy shot straight toward Nanman. At the last possible second, pain stabbed through my wrist. The great sword flew out of my hand, and the tightly stretched string inside my mind snapped. I forced my eyes open. For one brief second, I saw a figure dressed in white break through the barrier around the arena and pull Nanman into her arms. Liu Ruyan. When I woke up, sunlight filled the room. Everything was quiet, warm, and peaceful. For a moment, I thought I had somehow reached heaven. Then I turned my head and saw Liu Ruyan sitting beside me, calmly drinking tea. I immediately wished I could stab out my own eyes and pretend I had never seen her. "You're awake," Liu Ruyan said without looking back. "There are some things I need to ask you." I moved slightly and realized that all my damaged meridians had been restored. Liu Ruyan pointed at my rusty great sword, which was sitting beside her. "This sword is a demonic sword," she said bluntly. "It can devour the spiritual energy contained in magic artifacts. There are 49 seals inside it, and thanks to you, one of those seals has now been broken." My eyes widened. I looked at the sword with complete heartbreak. "So that's what you are, you traitorous great sword. I treated you like my brother, and you treated me like a cultivation resource?" Then I turned toward Liu Ruyan warily. "Why are you telling me this? I don't know anything." "I know you didn't do it intentionally," she said. "I brought you here because I was worried the sword's evil energy might corrupt you. But for this sword to appear in Changheng sect, someone must be plotting something." She stood up. "For now, stay here. Once we discover the truth, I'll send you back." Liu Ruyan turned to leave. I let out a cold laugh. "Immortal Liu, you're just leaving like that?" She paused and looked back at me. Her expression practically said, "You actually dare speak to me that way?" "You acted for your disciple and nearly got me killed," I said. "You ignored the life of someone from your own sect. That's a serious moral failure. Shouldn't you compensate me?" "There was a reason for what happened," she said. "I thought you had been affected by the demonic sword." "I don't care. You injured me. What if I develop a heart demon because of this and my cultivation gets delayed?" Liu Ruyan fell silent for a long time before finally asking, "What do you want?" "You took my sword, injured me, forcibly detained me, and made me miss the examination," I said. "There's no way this gets settled without at least 10,000 high-grade spirit stones." Without changing her expression, Liu Ruyan tossed me a storage bag. "There are 50,000 inside. Even though I came from a remote little peak, I was Li Xia's only disciple. My master always gave me the best food and clothing available. Honestly, I had been living a pretty comfortable life. We weren't as poor as everyone assumed. So I immediately added, "And while I'm staying here, I expect the best food and clothing too." Liu Ruyan looked at me suspiciously. I quickly said, "Don't believe me? Send my master a message and ask her." Liu Ruyan seemed to remember something. Her eyelid twitched slightly, but she accepted my demand. "You won't lack food or clothing," she said. "As for where you'll stay..." Her expression went blank again. "The best residence on Kanglan Peak is my Hanzhu Pavilion. If you don't mind, I'll have someone prepare a room for you." The second she finished speaking, she vanished, as if she was afraid I would make another unreasonable request. Honestly, I didn't want to stay anywhere near Liu Ruyan, but then I saw Nanman's face turn dark green with anger, like he wanted to tear me apart with his bare hands, and suddenly, I felt much better. I turned toward the disciple cleaning my room and loudly said, "Please hurry. Don't make Immortal Liu wait too long for me." That was how I ended up living on Kanglan Peak. During that time, I sent butterfly messages to Li Xia, but she never replied. It was as if she genuinely didn't care whether her only disciple lived or died. Still, Kanglan Peak had the richest spiritual energy in all of Changheng sect. I spent every day cultivating, and time passed quickly. My only problem was Nanman. One day, I sat cross-legged on my bamboo bed, regulating my breathing and entering a meditative state. Then I heard Nanman's voice from the courtyard. "Master, this move is so hard. Can you teach me yourself?" "No, Master. Why am I so stupid? I've practiced it 3 times and still can't learn it." I opened the door with a blank expression. Outside, Liu Ruyan was teaching Nanman swordsmanship. Her sharp and powerful technique became soft and weak in Nanman's hands. Combined with his wet, helpless eyes, the whole thing looked less like sword training and more like some bizarre flirtation. I almost laughed. Did Liu Ruyan seriously not have an intolerance for stupidity? Every disciple she had ever taught was a once-in-a-generation genius. This was probably the first time she had encountered someone like Nanman. After watching the spectacle for a while, I suddenly had an idea. I lifted a branch from the ground with my foot, grabbed it, and jumped in front of Nanman. "Junior brother," I said, "let me practice swordsmanship with you." I had entered Changheng sect half a year before him, so calling him junior brother was perfectly reasonable. Nanman wanted to refuse, but I moved too quickly. My strikes came one after another, each one filled with spiritual energy. The humiliation of having my face stepped on during the sect examination finally started to feel a little less painful. Nanman's eyes turned red with anger. He threw down his sword and shouted, "The move he just used was yours. He stole your techniques. Master, throw him out." That was so ridiculous, I almost laughed. "Those moves are so simple that nobody needs to steal them," I said. "Do you think everyone is as stupid as you?" Nanman's face went from red to green. He was so furious that he dropped the soft, pitiful act. He pulled out his 7-string zither and charged at me. The wooden branch in my hand shattered into powder in an instant. In my panic, I saw Liu Ruyan behind me. Without hesitation, I shoved Nanman toward her. "Nanman, stop causing trouble," Liu Ruyan said helplessly, as she raised a hand to calm him down. Then she gave me a cold, sharp glance. There are countless talented people in this world who don't understand humility. Nanman simply awakened to speech later than others. He may not be inferior to you in the future. Why do you have to humiliate him like this? Nanman immediately brightened. "Master is right," he said smugly. "Beimu only dares to bully me because of his tiny bit of talent. There are plenty of talented people in the world, but he doesn't have a master as amazing as you. What does he even have to be proud of? And you're a genius who appears once in a century. What right does he have to act arrogant in front of you?" Before he could finish, my expression suddenly changed. Nanman noticed immediately and sneered. "What's wrong? I only said a few things, and you can't handle it? You're way too sensitive." I pressed my lips together, but before I could say anything, the clear blue sky suddenly darkened. Black clouds rolled in from every direction. Within a few breaths, violent winds began to howl as thunder roared above us. The disciples around us all changed expression. "What's going on?" "Kanglan Peak has immortal Liu Ruyan's barrier. It keeps the weather warm like spring all year. Did the barrier fail?" Even Liu Ruyan's calm face showed a flash of shock. She pushed Nanman's arm away and began calculating with her fingers. While nobody was paying attention to me, I sat down on the ground and began meditating. The spiritual energy around me went completely insane. It rushed into my body like a tidal wave. I was forming my golden core. Only when the first bolt of lightning crashed down toward my head did everyone finally realize what was happening. They stared at me in disbelief. Heavenly lightning? That's impossible. He's only forming a golden core. After recovering from her shock, Liu Ruyan immediately placed a protective barrier around me. Nanman grabbed her hand with an unhappy expression. "Master, he isn't even your disciple. Why are you protecting him?" Liu Ruyan's lips tightened as she stared at me. "He is a child favored by heaven." When the second bolt of heavenly lightning struck, the other elders of Changheng sect gathered on Kanglan Peak. They added even more protective barriers around me. Once they confirmed I could survive at least 3 strikes, they finally relaxed. Then they began studying me with uncertain expressions. "Normally, cultivators only attract heavenly lightning when they enter the nascent soul realm," one elder said. "Those who attract it while forming a golden core are almost unheard of. Since ancient times, there have only been 2. If I remember correctly, the first was Fu Ning, Heaven's Chosen, from 500 years ago. But after failing his ascension 100 years ago, he vanished without a trace. The second was Liu Ruyan." Someone turned toward her. "Liu Ruyan, I thought this child only had a little talent. I never expected him to be another child favored by heaven. Do you remember how many bolts of lightning you attracted when you formed your golden core?" Everyone knew that the more heavenly lightning a cultivator attracted, the greater their talent and the more favor the heavens had shown them. Then another bolt of lightning crashed down. Liu Ruyan looked up at the dark sky, where the clouds showed no sign of fading. Her voice slowed as she spoke.